Hi guys, my name is Chelsea and I am the blogger behind Confessions of a Thrifter, and I also operate Lucky Rabbit Shop online. Today I wanted to talk to you about lay flat measurements. So shopping online can be pretty scary at times, and the fear is buying something that you fell in love with for it to not fit you once it arrives. Then what? Fortunately, if you're buying vintage, unlike many modern retailers, it's likely that the seller is going to offer somewhere within the listing important measurements for each individual garment, plus a few extras to help ensure that you're buying something that it's going to be valuable to you and it's going to be worth it because it's going to fit you. So what does that information mean to you? Last week I had a customer who inquired about lay flat measurements, including that was included in my shop and under a particular listing, and she was gearing up for her first online purchase, presumably for vintage clothing, which is pretty exciting. So she contacted me and asked me a slew of questions that I hopefully answered all of them, and broke down each of them with her, giving her explanations to help her understand the measurements that I had in the listing, specifically lay flat measurements, and how to compare that to her personal measurements. During that interaction, it dawned on me how many potential customers probably never ask and inquire like she did when they have questions about measurements and what lay flat measurements mean when comparing it to your body, and end up passing up purchasing an item that they might otherwise really appreciate and value, and much less, never venture online because they're not able to feel it. And that's important for the online retailer to know, that our customers aren't able to experience the item the way you can in a store. We're not able to, the customer cannot hold the item, they can't put it on, they can't feel it and feel the fit of the item. So as retailers, online retailers, vintage or not, we're trying to be as descriptive as we can to give you guys the understanding of, the visualization of what you're getting, and hopefully something that you really love. I know from experience on my own that I've purchased things online from major retailers that don't include measurements and give somewhat ambiguous terms of small, medium, and large, and I receive it and it doesn't fit, and it's depressing. It's disappointing, and it affects your customer experience and the experience to come when shopping online. So that's what this video is about. I really wanted to help you guys interpret what lay flat measurements mean. So what is it? Lay flat garment measurements versus body measurement. Lay flat measurements are taken from the garment, obviously, itself. Body measurements are your anatomical measurements. A body measurement, your personal measurement, is going to give you or act like a guide to know which items to choose that will fit you and which items to pass up. For example, if you're a 26 waist and pants and you purchase a 25, that would be foolish. It's too small compared to your anatomic measurements. So it's fairly logical to say that never purchase anything smaller than your body garment, or excuse me, your body measurement. It's actually better to scale up about an inch for something that is a fit-in item, so that the clothes will fit naturally and you'll have room to move. Nobody wants painted clothes, or we'd walk around naked with paint all over ourselves. Anyway, while pant measurements may be pretty straightforward with the waist and inseam, tops, dresses, outerwear may not be, particularly if the fit is meant to be slouchy. So note the description in the item, or the item's description rather, and if the retailer describes it as slouchy, that might give you a reason why particular measurements are in great contrast to your personal body measurements. So it doesn't necessarily mean if it's 4 inches bigger in the bust and the waist than your anatomical measurements, that doesn't mean it's still not going to fit you. So note the fit. If it's supposed to be a fitted blazer, then you want it obviously closer to your anatomical measurements. So things to pay attention to is key measurements and secondary measurements. The key measurements that really is going to determine whether this item is going to fit you. For tops or dresses, it's going to be the bust, the waist, and the shoulders. That is really going to determine a lot if that item is going to fit you or not. The secondary measurements for those for tops and dresses and outerwear, it's going to be the sleeve length, the arm length, the overall length, and for pants it's going to be the inseam. To pay attention to those items. That's really going to give you an indication of how the item's going to fit rather than if it actually will fit. The bust and waist shoulders will tell you if it's going to fit. The shoulder measurements is taken on your personal body. When you're doing your personal anatomical measurements, it's going to be taken from the back across where your clavicle is at the front, the same area in the back from shoulder to shoulder. And so when we're measuring as retailers on a particular garment, we're measuring the same area straight across a garment, and that will give you an indication of how it's going to fit here. Is the seam going to be sloppy on you and fit 3 inches down? Then it might be too large, unless it's intended to be a slouchy fit. The waist and the bust is also important to pay attention to for fit. Many times in lay flat measurements, waist and bust aren't doubled the way they need to be to actually be closer to the anatomical correct measurement, because it's taken literally across the garment as it's laying down. It's not three-dimensional, it's laying flat, so it's going to be laying this way. If you double it, if it doesn't appear to be doubled, say it's, you know, the waist is measured at 16 inches rather than 32 inches, you can tell that, okay, something's wrong here, because nobody, unless you're a child, is going to fit that item. So make sure to double waist and bust. Again, with the secondary measurements, that's going to provide you an idea of how it's going to fit. A 27-inch sleeve, for example, compared to a 24-inch sleeve, is going to fit differently on your arm between the two. So it's going to give you the visualization, especially if it's not on a model, but that garment is being depicted on a dress form, and how that item is going to fit you. And I think that's pretty much it, where I have covered everything. Oh, one more thing. If you do not know your personal measurements, grab an item that is either form-fitting on you or an item that is similar to what you're looking on the internet that you may already have, and lay it down, lay it flat. It needs to be completely flat without wrinkles, square, so that it's facing you, you know, straight and level. If it's skewed, the measurements are going to be off. And measure that across the shoulders. You can do it from the front, about, you know, 1/2 inch down from the top. Measure it from seam to seam. Then for the bust, measure from underneath the armpit all the way across the item to the other armpit. For waist, you want to drop down a couple inches to where your natural waist would approximately be, and if the item's long enough, then you want to drop down to where your hips are going to be and measure that across. Take those measurements, write them down, and keep that as a reference for when you're shopping online, what fits on you. Again, if it's a fitted item, it's going to be as close to your anatomical measurements, so it gives you a little bit of a better guide. So I hope that's giving you all the information and helpful for your lay flat measurements and how to interpret that and how to compare it to your body. And yay for shopping online. See you next time. Bye.